Hello and welcome to Default Assault. I am your host, Demosthenes Euclid, and with me today is my awesome co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash. What's up, Kyle?
What's going on, Demos? Good to be aboard. I know this was one that people may have been looking for after seeing the previous episode where we featured The Godfather, so it only stands to reason we do this, which was another 3 hours that I had to invest for this project, and I thought you were supposed to be the host. But, no, I'm just kidding. No, I like this episode going into it, looking forward to it, ready to break it down.
No, I'm excited. This is one of the film debates. You know, we previously touched upon Alien versus Aliens, and yeah, that's a big one. But nothing quite comes close to which is the better film, the original Godfather or Godfather Part 2. Now, if you remember, in our last Godfather episode where we discussed whether or not it was required viewing, Kyle hadn't seen The Godfather up to that point. Well, he hadn't seen The Godfather Part 2 either. Now he has. Now we're going to discuss it.
Confirmed is I was not one of the 30% of people that lied about having not seen The Godfather, and I'm better for it because of these episodes.
I wonder if there's a percentage of people who saw The Godfather and didn't like it. I'd love to get the figures on. I assume it's probably a very, very small percentage, or whether there's a fear. Maybe there's a fear associated to the fact of I shouldn't tell people I don't like The Godfather. In fact, I remember Family Guy doing a joke about that. They were drowning in the basement, and he said, and his last dying plea is, you know, I didn't really care much for The Godfather.
What?
Oh, Peter Griffin is an idiot, so that it kind of falls within his character. But before we delve into the verses, tell us first of all, Kyle, refresh us a little bit on your thoughts on the original Godfather, and then tell us what did you think of The Godfather Part 2.
Right, and well, the summary, I remember very clearly the summary of my thought once it concluded because it was 3 words. Yeah, I get it. You know, I get why people revere the original Godfather so much. But I am 100% aboard with calling it required reading within cinema, American cinema, at this day and age.
All right, and as for The Godfather Part 2?
So, yeah, the required reading thing, I mean, because you saw the first one, you feel compelled to see the second one. Gotta tell you, did not like it as much. Did not like it as much. I'm not sure if you're ready to break down into the heavy detail of it yet, but yeah, that I did not think it was as good a film. I kind of wonder if Godfather 2, I mean, it couldn't have come first. Like, I know there's aspects that reach back, spoiler alert, that reach back to the past, and some that stay in the future past the first Godfather movie. And really, if you took those things from the past and ran it into the first one and then all that and played it in order, you know, as maybe 3 different movies, maybe that would be interesting. I don't know. But the first movie would be very difficult to get through because everything would be in Italian most of the time. But I'll say this much for Robert De Niro's performance. And I mean, at first I'm like, you know, he's got his hair slicked back and he looks all young and he gives you a lot of the lip and the nod.
He's doing the Marlon Brando voice. He's doing a decent imitation of it.
It's well, and the voice is close enough. Fine, I can give or take that. But the mannerism was very well delivered. Like his pacing in his sentences, he did very well capture what a young Vito Corleone may have looked like.
This is an example of where an actor performs a role so well, I forget that he's Robert De Niro. I look at him and I instantly think, that is Vito Corleone. That is him. I can buy it. And it's funny that you should bring up the point of if there was a version where everything would be in chronological order. When Francis Ford Coppola was doing Apocalypse Now a few years later, he was trying to raise funds for that film. It was a disaster. That was such a crazy shoot that in order to raise money, he actually he had the original editor edit a Godfather saga, which was a chronological version. It was the beginning part with Robert De Niro, then in the middle, The Godfather, and then the Michael Corleone Godfather Part 2 stuff.
Wow.
It was like a 7 hour experience, and they added in a bunch of deleted scenes and extended some others.
Wow. Can we have a talk for a minute? Like, if you're watching a feature length, no, forget feature length. If you are watching a motion picture, okay, where they stop for an intermission, you know it's long. All right. Just gonna throw that out there, okay? For my money, look, they came right out the gate. Spoiler alert with Vito Corleone, the whole thing with his mother going to the thing, and she's talking and begging and playing, and she draws a motherfucking knife. I'm like, whoa, So they come out. What's odd is they come right out the gate with a hook, but then I feel like the movie is slow. But it's supposed to be to this extent. Like, what's interesting is the whole use of the wedding in Godfather 1 to set the table for everything worked so brilliantly. But getting Vito along, like, they had to kind of intertwine it in with Michael to make it seem less slow, less dry. The problem is they're intertwining building the story, building both stories at the same time. And there are times where I feel like I'm like, great, you were finally getting somewhere, and now you're back to Vito. Come on, man, something like that, right?
Funny enough, that was one of my big issues with The Godfather 2. And I consider it a great film. The thing is with the original Godfather as one piece from beginning to end. It was a complete piece, well paced, well balanced with those key moments. The Godfather Part 2 has a lot of distinct scenes that are just as powerful, and a couple that are possibly more powerful than what was in The Godfather, but I don't think it's as easily as well paced. I see what they were doing, and I appreciate what they were trying to do with the changing timelines, going back and forth. Vito's rise to power and Michael's fall, but even more so, Vito's compassion for family, and then Michael losing family. I get what they were trying to do. I feel like it just didn't work as well as many people have propped up. I was much more interested in Vito's story up until Michael's story. I didn't really get pulled in until maybe halfway through the film.
Same here. And matter of fact, I had talked to you, or we were doing our production call for this movie, and I was saying to you, the first half of the movie, I'm like, good God, this thing is dragging for me personally, and then you're like, well, watch the second half. There'll be more stuff to that you're looking for, which was absolutely spot on. The next day, or that evening after our call, I watched the rest of it, and that's where all the big scenes that you hear about throughout, the 40 plus years of, what is it, 40, 45? I can't remember.
I think it came out that one. I think came out in 74, if memory serves. So 2 years later, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll call it 40-ish, right?
Yeah.
The punchline is that second half. Okay, you got some of the scenes that you heard about. You broke my heart, all that stuff. But the scene that for me was easily the top one in the film is one you heard nothing about. And I defy anybody to really, like, the burden of proof is on you to explain to me the scene that's better than Kay breaking the news. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, bitches. Do I need to get the spoiler bell out, D-Mouse?
No, I've actually already worked a clip in of you doing that if you've watched the last couple of episodes.
All right, class. Spoilers, bitches. Spoilers. This is Demos letting you all know that he's the real production muscle behind this. I'm just the dumbass he gets to make fun of every week, except for during Rogue One when I smashed him. Anyways,
it's a fun job, especially when I kick his ass. You're still in denial. That's your problem, Kyle. You gotta face it.
Denial, but then you didn't reference this as one of the past episodes where we talked about movies. You brought up Alien, really? Anyways, enough about that. So
anyway, go on, because you're about to describe what is my favorite scene in the movie. Funny enough.
Right. The burden of proof is on you to tell me a better scene than Kay confessing that the child that she miscarried, she actually aborted. She's telling him that you're so evil that I could not, even though this is my kid, I could not let the world know the evil of the next spawn that you might produce. Holy shit, Demos.
And that was the moment that Michael lost his humanity. That was the moment that he any hope of him being a good man or retaining some of, because he starts off the scene in a similar style as he was in the beginning of The Godfather. There's tenderness there,
Right.
and then he especially following up the scene where he's having a conversation with his mother, and she was telling him that you never lose family, and then she murders his family. She murders his connection to that. He loses that. That's the moment where seeing the fact that he in a way, although that's not the way he probably saw it, but he turned her into a monster and destroyed his very soul doing so, and that gives him the coldness and the impetus to kill his own brother later on.
Well, I think, and yeah, I mean, so that at that point, I'm not so quick to do that. And I'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, I mean, we'll call it what it is. When he strikes her, is that moment, no
Yeah.
question. And I mean, that's the one thing. Obviously, in society, that's something that's very much frowned upon, and in art and in film, oftentimes that kind of a scene is when you see, this is where we show you how low a man in the show is when he beats on his wife. And I don't think it was anything that was spectacular. I think it was well executed and truly shown, was very, yeah, was well executed and truly shows that moment where you see him processing, wait, you did what? And then he's just and again, not to make him a sympathetic character, but that's probably one where he goes back. If he were to look back on that, he would wish he hadn't done it, or maybe not because he lost his humanity. But then you bring up Fredo. I have to tell you, anything that's supposed to make me sympathetic to Fredo from Michael Corleone's perspective is impossible. Can we both agree that Fredo is the single biggest tool in the entire movie? Okay.
Fredo, I never really truly cared about his character in either movie, but I will say this: there's this one scene where he's having that final true conversation with his brother before the feigned forgiveness, where he is opening up his soul and saying that he's the older brother, and he was tasked with running Mickey Mouse clubs and so forth, and Michael then pretty much telling him that he's dead to him. Right. That was the one and a much needed and I think well executed scene where he actually did for once feel sympathetic towards him. And that scene is the reason why the ending where he's shot has any weight to it, because you've seen him bare his soul and you feel it. Could it have been done better? Yeah, possibly, but
I don't know that I'm there, and I'm gonna go a different direction because everything you're saying is probably the way it's intended, mm-hmm. or what I know. I can't. You can't speak. No one but an artist can speak for their intent, obviously. But I think yours is the more popular interpretation. That's not mine, which is okay.
Fire away.
What I saw was, I really think, like you said, the feigned apology. No. I think he actually did forgive his brother. I really do.
How so?
Well, let me get there. I really think he forgave his brother. What little humanity might have been left in him forgave his brother. But keep in mind, we've already seen the metamorphosis that he is just the monster and the businessman now, right? For those that don't know better, liken it to Walter White truly becoming Heisenberg in Breaking Bad. So while he actually forgave his brother and may even understood why he did it after his speech, if I'm your older brother, I'm supposed to be looking after you, all that other stuff, which was well done and actually proved to me that Fredo is, in fact, just a giant tool who had pride on his mind when he had no business to. The fact that he still killed him afterward told me that Fredo's removal was a business decision, not a personal one. I mean, think about it, right? So Fredo's already betrayed him, regardless of his blood. Okay. And he has, I mean, like, and he's watching Fredo, like the whole scene where he blows his cover at that show saying, "Hey, me and Johnny, blah, blah, blah." When he's like, "Oh, you never met Johnny. Hey, Johnny, me and Johnny be here all the time." Like, that's totally a you had one job moment, right? Okay. I wish I could play Don Cheadle from Ocean's 11 after the failed bank heist when he gets recruited by Brad Pitt. You tosses. You had one job. You had one job, Fredo. Okay. You had one job. Don't keep the damn facade up. Don't let Michael find out that you knew Johnny beforehand and that you were in on it.
Oh, anyway. That's why he's tasked with running the Mickey Mouse clubs, because he has slips like that. That's within his character.
But I'm not saying it's not, but that's the proof positive. He got extra chances for one reason. His last name was Corleone. All right?
Yeah.
Everybody else probably knew that too. But that was a line he couldn't cross. I mean, look at it from Michael's perspective. Like, Jesus, Lord, this guy can't even betray me right. Oh, I forgive you that you're a douche, but bye.
Well, you see, I don't think our interpretations are as divided as you might think. Yes, it was a business decision, but what I'm saying is, after the familial betrayal he had with Kay, and his losing the passion and the authority of family that his father set, that gave him that made that business decision, as you say, okay. Because it wouldn't have been okay before that. I don't honestly believe that. I think that was that.
I didn't say that. Like I cited, hey, we've seen the transition to him as a monster, so he's capable of doing things like that. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what do you think? Because for me, honestly, Michael's story, like I alluded to earlier, I don't get truly invested with that until towards the end. Because unlike the first film, which had a much more a fuller arc for Michael, this one he really begins as a bad dude and ends up as a badder dude. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think it's almost it's almost a disgrace I'm referring to Michael Corleone as the dude. But nevertheless,
you need to flash that old 80s video game Bad Dude.
Exactly. That's exactly what's going through my mind. But what I'm saying, I was much more, from beginning to end, the entire storyline, I was much more invested in Vito's story.
Yeah, I was too.
And I thought it was a story that got better as it went on, especially the first his first kill, where he's stepping over the rooftops and he's killing the neighborhood Godfather. Just so well paced, so full of wonderful imagery, and it's haunting. That was the best. If you're gonna go by, what's the best kill in the movie, that's easily the best kill. But once again, I have to go back to the abortion scene, because that one scene, especially where he strikes her, is such a gut punch. I dare say that I actually felt more aghast than when Sonny got shot down. That was the single most violent act in both films.
I'll agree with that. I mean, because one could argue that when they stopped Sonny, they stopped another act of violence that was going to happen anyway, right?
True.
But yeah, here, like, this came out of nowhere, and the two of them hurt each other more than death could probably allow. I think that's the picture trying to be painted by the art here, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's the capper. That's the capper to the Michael's entire storyline from the first film to that film. That feels much more connected to the overall story than some of the dalliances they have in Cuba and so forth. I understand what they did, and a lot of those scenes are fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but that
Uh-huh.
was the true heart of his story.
There's things with Michael Corleone where we're pointing out that he's clever, but that doesn't necessarily move the story along because the whole exchange between him and Roth, I mean, okay, so one of them's going to screw the other guy over eventually, whatever, because business or whatever. That's fine. But let me go back real quick. You had mentioned that the first kill for Vito was your big scene. I got to tell you, my favorite interaction surrounding Vito was when we first see him acting as the young Godfather, so to speak, and he's negotiating with the guy that gets so nervous about the ladies. I think it's the ladies' rent or whatever.
Yes.
He gets so nervous he can't even open the damn door on his way out, and that whole scene was just wonderfully done. Even again, we watch Robert De Niro morph himself into young Marlon Brando. The whole everybody in there, like the the guy who's the guard in the room that's not the main two one of the main two guys speaking, he's just the right amount of entertained from a distance in the background to know that you could tell he's enjoying what's going on, but he's staying quiet because that's his job. You know that this guy that's negotiating with Vito is scared out of his gourd, just so going from thinking he has the power and then realizing he doesn't, and the whole thing where they're negotiating and De Niro as Venero, De Nito as Vero, really? De Niro as Vito is taking a hard line, but when finally he gets his way, he's it's so wonderful, and then him trying to get out the door and them having a laugh of it after. Oh man,
I see. I agree. That is a great scene. The one scene in the whole film that is that's actually comedic. But I'll tell you why it's effective, and I that's how you do good comedy in a film like that, because it's not only funny because of the situation, but it builds their character. It says
yep.
so much about what Fido has become and where he is now, and how others truly fear him. This, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, it's terrifying, but
It also allows you to set that stage and then think back to the first Godfather movie. So you saw that happen when he was younger and newer at it and all this other stuff. Then you imagine that, except like 10 to 30 times worse as he's gotten older and is petting stray cats in his lap as he's trying to set a dude right. I mean, goodness. You know what I mean?
we also have to consider the fact that at that particular time, in the timeline of the first Godfather film, he's not the one getting his hands dirty. He's sitting back and giving orders. He's letting others get their hands dirty. In this film, no, he's the one climbing on rooftops and shooting people. So the fear isn't so much a fear of an entity. It's a direct physical fear from the person sitting right in front of you. It's it, I will say, just to get this through, I honestly, my personal feelings, and this is a bit of a reiteration of what I said earlier. I think that The Godfather Part 2 as a whole has stronger individual scenes. Many of them more powerful because more powerful than the original Godfather, but then again built on what the Godfather set. Overall, Kyle, Godfather versus Godfather 2. I assume you're sticking with the original.
Dude, this is like Batman versus Condiment Man. Are you serious right now? No, seriously. No, Godfather 1's far superior movie in my mind. There's a lot of good things into, and I'm far from a bad film. I think it suffers the same thing that Marvel's Iron Fist suffered as a series on Netflix. It's not as bad as everyone says it is, just the bar was set so high. The difference is unequivocally, Iron Fist sucks because they rushed it. However, um, I feel like Godfather 2 is a good movie. Um, but don't be putting this on any top lists. And I swear to God, you had said to me in the production meeting that the popular opinion is that Godfather 2 is the better film. All right, folks.
Well,
I'd like. Go ahead.
it's about a 50-50. If you go Internet Movie Database, Godfather is number 2, Godfather Part 2 is number 3 on their top 250.
No.
A lot of lists have them tied. I think AFI is the one where they're actually of like the big list where they're very they're separate. I think Godfather Part 2 is like 30 something percent. Sorry, number 35 or something, and the Godfather 1 is in the top. I think is number 2.
No, that's asinine.
Godfather 1 being part 2. I mean number 2 on the list.
Godfather 2 being that high on any list is just completely asinine to me. I'm sorry. They're stuck by the memory of a few choice scenes. One of which, and the Fredo, you're breaking my heart, is completely overrated. It's a good scene, but damn it, really, we're immortalizing that? No thanks. I mean, he kissed his brother really hard on New Year's night because he betrayed him. Ooh, subterfuge. That being renowned as it is, and the abortion scene being completely left out, God, I ain't gonna touch that. But because there's probably political stuff involved, and I ain't trying to go that way. But don't tell me about Godfather 2 being a better movie. Certainly, I mean, and then being among one of the better movies of all time. Look, I haven't seen Casablanca. I just set up another episode, didn't I? I haven't seen Casablanca yet, but I'm pretty sure it's a better movie than Godfather 2.
I consider Casablanca, the poster behind me, maybe a giveaway, but I consider Casablanca to be better than both. Easy. But here's the thing. It's kind of funny because when Part 2 came out originally, it actually received mixed reviews for a lot of the same reasons that both you and I are citing right now. And it's only been there's been a reevaluation. I think that its Best Picture win was what prompted a reevaluation of the film later on, and it was actually on a trivial note, the first sequel to ever win an Academy Award for Best Picture.
I didn't know.
The only other sequel to ever win was Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, but I think that was more of a summation for the whole series rather than an individual film. But that's another topic. I think I hold a higher value for Godfather Part 2 than you do. I don't have as much fondness for it as the first one. The first one packs a wallop. The moment you start watching it, you can't tear yourself away from it. It's such a well-told story, beginning to end. Like I said before, the way it's paced, the narrative, it gives you time to breathe and really get gripped by these performances rather than jumping back and forth. Like I said, I understood what they were trying to do. I don't think it was as effective as what they hoped for, or what most people actually think. But in its individual parts, I think it is great.
I'm going to say good, not great. It was worth it to get this episode going because, hey, good times is always on Hilarity by default.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, doesn't hold a candle to the first one. And frankly, but I think this is more the kind of thing where people who were watching it carried over their enthusiasm from the first one into watching the second. I think there's a lot of fundamentally good performances. I just don't think it was as strong a piece because it was trying to do a lot more than the first movie was. Period.
I will say there is an added dose of confidence to it, where the first one seemed a little bit more organic. But overall, I do agree. The Godfather Part 1 easily wins in my book. Godfather Part 2, still a good movie. I'd argue still a great movie, but nowhere near, I think, the majesty of the original. But I do find it fascinating. So last time you compared, we talked about The Godfather and The Hangover. This time, I think you managed to compare it to
Iron Fist.
Huh?
Iron Fist.
Iron Fist. Jesus Christ.
That was just for you because I did not. I already made it wild enough. I couldn't do it as bad as Hangover in the first one.
At this particular point, people are actually going to think we're going to do our Sophie's Choice versus Benchwarmers episode.
Oh man, you're gonna make me watch another movie? There's no way in hell I'm sitting in front of Benchwarmers. Whoa, got him. Anyways.
So with that being said, that does it for this week's episode of Default Assault. Make sure to check us out next week and follow me on Twitter at Default Hilarity, and on Facebook, Hilarity by Default, and why not, HilarityByDefault.com for all my latest movie reviews and other fun stuff. And also, be sure to tune in on Mondays for our new series, Who It Could Have Been, where I surprised Kyle with a casting decision that didn't quite go through.
You can find me, of course, on Twitter at the SOTG, and then on Facebook, Student of the Game. Good times there. And yeah, like and subscribe, fools. More of this.
Well, that pretty much does it for another episode of Default Assault. We will see you next time by default.